Good morning. It is good to bring the meat today. Excited for that. So, hey, we are glad you're here. Thanks for being with us. If you're joining us online, if you're upstairs in our overflow, thanks for being part of what God is doing here at Heritage Church. How many, when you drove in, saw some changes outside? Isn't that something else? Isn't that fantastic? Yes, yes. If you were joining us online, as we drove into our Lake Zurich property, the steel has gone up, and they made a lot of progress over the course of this last week. And as we kind of gave a little bit of a heads up last week, that also means there's some interior renovations that are taking place. And so, ladies, we have moved your restroom to the men's restroom. And the amount of cleaning that we went into this week, just for you. As I walked past, I saw painted plants in front of urinals. So you didn't even notice they were there, but it's great. And for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be remodeling some of the interior bathrooms. And so after that one's done, we'll switch back. And guys, we've got a very special treat for you. We brought in some very nice porta potties. No, seriously, they are nice. I had a get-together last night with some friends in them. They were wonderful. They're roomy. They're clean. They're absolutely great. So for the next couple of weeks, guys, we're going to be using those outside while the women can have some of the inside ones. And but it's all exciting things. So you'll get lost in there. I'm telling you, they're beautiful. They're very, very, very nice. Minimal smell. I mean, you name it. It's wonderful. No, we're excited. What a great season that God has us in as a church. So thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for those of you who are giving and you are sacrificially giving to this campaign to help us do this. I cannot tell you how much this means to me and to so much for the future of our church. So thank you for being a part of what God is doing. And it's really great when we actually get to see things moving in the right direction. So really excited. We're going to keep you updated as timelines come and as we kind of make some significant strides. But I just wanted to say thanks for all of you who are a part of what God is doing here. And through your faithful generosity, your giving is what makes these things possible so that we can help reach the ones who don't know Jesus for generations to come. So thank you for being a huge part of it. What we're going to talk about today is kind of tied up in this season for me, to be totally honest. I'm a fairly vulnerable pastor. I'm sure most of you walk out of here going, man, that guy's a total mess. And I'm not sure what else to tell you other than if I'm a mess, I bet you are too. And I think we could probably figure out how to get healthy together because of what Jesus has done in us and through us. And so I hope that my vulnerability leads the way so that some of you go, all right, well, maybe I can be a little more honest about what I'm thinking and feeling as well. And that's kind of what a little bit of this talk is going to be about today. There's a feeling that I've had, and my guess is that you have it as well. It's a feeling that's kind of hard to explain with words. You just know it whenever it happens. It's this feeling that you get when you step on the scale and you see a number that you're not hoping for. Okay? It's a feeling for you, maybe you've experienced it when you like someone, but they introduce you to others as their friend. Right? There's a sinking feeling that you get, or when you work really hard and it feels like no one actually notices or even cares. The feeling that I think every one of us, regardless of where you're at in your season of life, my guess is even regardless of what you believe about God, I bet there's a feeling that all of us can relate to, and it's this. It's that feeling of discouragement. It's a feeling of discouragement, and I'm telling you, I have felt this so many times throughout my life, but I have felt this so many ways in this season of my life. I would describe discouragement this way. Discouragement is the loss of something, right? And maybe for you, it can be the loss of hope, right? You had reasons to be hopeful, but now those reasons have shifted somehow. And all of a sudden, those things that you were once hopeful for now seem to be out of reach. And so there is a sense of discouragement that settles in. Maybe you can relate to this. Maybe for you, it's a loss of confidence. Maybe you had confidence in something or you had confidence in someone, and then things started to change. Decisions were made. things were passed along to you. There were things that were said or you heard or you experienced. And all of a sudden, that sense of confidence that you once had in someone or something is starting to shift. It's starting to feel like it's disintegrating around you. Maybe that's a feeling you can relate to. Maybe for some of you like me, it's a feeling of a loss of courage. Maybe you felt really excited about some things. You felt like you could take on some things, but then all of a sudden discouragement comes in. Discouragement is ultimately the loss of courage, right? That I can take heart, that I can move through this. I can do this. We can navigate this. No matter what comes our way, we got that. And then all of a sudden, that courage that gave you such confidence seems to be slipping away. And now discouragement is kind of replacing it. Discouragement is ultimately the loss of courage. And if you're anything like me, you've probably experienced that discouragement follows a similar formula every time. If I kind of look back in the seasons of my life, I've discovered that there is a formula that whenever this starts to happen, discouragement is not too far off from showing up. Right? Here's the formula in my life. Here's what I've discovered. Sustained struggle, right? Whenever I'm going through something and it just doesn't seem to be letting up. Sustained struggle plus uncertain timelines equals some discouragement. And what I've discovered recently in the last couple of years is when you throw in a little isolation, discouragement is always right around the corner, right? When you have sustained struggle plus an uncertain timeline. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't even know if there's going to be an end in sight. Have you ever noticed that even when you're going through a challenging moment, as long as you can see when it's going to end, you somehow endure it a little better, right? I'm sure I've never done it. I'm sure there are people like you who have worked out before, right? And you know there's a clock. I'm kidding. It's almost embarrassing that none of you actually go, no, we can tell you've worked out before. No, just give me something, please. Yeah, discouraging, isn't it? When you know that there is a time limit on your struggle, you navigate it differently, don't you? When that time limit is gone, or there's some uncertainty, that's when I find discouragement comes in the quickest. When you feel like you're dealing with some struggles, you're going through some hardships, and you don't know if they're ever going to end. And that combination makes you want to withdraw. Because when you get around other people, all you're doing is being reminded of what your life is not. And so you begin to isolate. And that is a formula for discouragement. I've seen it in my life over and over and over and over again. Over these last couple of weeks, we've been looking at some defining moments in the life of a guy by the name of Joshua. He's found throughout the Old Testament. He is a man that God used to lead God's people, but man, this guy experienced some discouragement. Some significant seasons and issues. And we've been kind of leaning in, learning some important things along the way. And this feeling of discouragement is what Joshua had to have felt time and time and time again as you begin to hear about his life and the experiences that he had to navigate. If you haven't been with us in the last couple of weeks, I'll give you a really quick kind of Cliff Notes version of who Joshua was. Joshua was one of two spies that God used to go and to scan out the promised land, this land that God had given to God's people. And so their leader picked 12 spies. He said, I want you guys to go. Joshua and a guy named Caleb were two of the 12 spies. They went out, they saw the land, they came back, and they said, hey, listen, God will give us this land. Yeah, there's some obstacles, there's some things that we're going to have to navigate, but God has said he will do this. And the same God that brought us out of slavery, the same God that brought us through the Red Sea, he will help us be victorious. But the problem was the other 3 million people or so who didn't go on that journey listened to the 10 negative voices. And as a result, they chose not to proceed. And because of that, they missed out of entering the promised land. And so then God caused them to wander around in the desert for 40 years. Now that can be discouraging. Right? If you're the one guy going, God, I told you. Guys, we could have done this. Now look, we're wandering around the desert for 40 years because you guys wouldn't let. That can be discouraging. Right? On top of all of that, Moses, who was his leader, had died, and now Joshua was put in charge. Now, that may not seem like that can be discouraging until you know who Moses is. Once you realize you have to follow a leader like that, that's pretty discouraging. In fact, the last verse of the book of Deuteronomy, which is just before the book of Joshua, describes Moses this way. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joshua. Right, crickets, I'm sure, fell across all of the people of God. This guy's going to be like, how am I going to compete with that? Right? And so Joshua has been wandering around the wilderness. His people are tired. Everybody's frustrated. They've literally watched an entire generation of their peers die off because of their disbelief, their unbelief in God. And Joshua knows that we haven't even begun. There's still more land we got to take. There's still more battles that we've got to face. And I'm sure all of that was discouraging. But you know the number one way we know that Joshua was discouraged was because God kept telling him to be courageous. In fact, 4 times in the very first chapter of Joshua, God keeps telling him, be strong and courageous, right? You don't need to tell someone 4 times something over and over and over to be courageous unless they feel discouraged. Right? The fact that God is saying something lets us as readers know that something is there. Right? I'll give you an example. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to get my haircut. And as I was going through the haircut process, we're sitting there and we're doing all this small talk and she's just kind of clipping away. And at the end of my haircut, the stylist says something to me I'd never heard before. She says, do you want me to cut your eyebrows and ears? Never heard that before. I kind of thought she was joking. Like, I came for a haircut. She, do you want me to cut your eyebrows and ears? And I was about to just say something smart alecky, and then it hit me like, why would she ask me that? And so I said, do you think I should cut my eyebrows and my ears? And she said this, we don't really ask unless it needs to be done. Little did I know, the older you got, hair just, I felt so, I'm like, do I have like uncontrollable hair? Is there like an eardo like that's sticking out? Like, how am I even, what do you, I have no clue. It's, we don't really ask, right? She was saying something to let me know that something was there, right? That's what God is doing in Joshua chapter 4 or chapter 1. He's going, hey, listen, be courageous. Be strong, be courageous, don't be afraid. Over and over, he's letting us know something, that he was afraid, that he was discouraged, that he was filled with some worry and some anxiety. Over and again, God is telling Joshua, be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid. And it lets us know that Joshua must have been dealing with some lack of courage, some discouragement. So here's how God says it to Joshua. Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. For a lot of people, maybe you've heard this verse before. In fact, it's kind of become a life verse for some of us. This is what God says. Joshua, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Right? And here's what I want you to notice. You see, if you're anything like me, I think most of us think of encouragement as something that you do after someone has done something well. Right? That's the way we all process it. Someone does a good job, and so we encourage them for what they have done. But a more biblically accurate, right, a more biblically consistent understanding of encouragement is this. It's what you give to someone ahead of time, That's actually what it is. You speak courage into them ahead of it. And so what God is doing to Joshua is he's going, hey, listen, I know where you're going. I know the battles that you're about to face. I know you got some stuff. Hey, I'm just encouraging, man. You got this. You can be strong. You can be courageous. You don't have to be afraid. God is speaking life into Joshua before he had to do anything to earn it. Right? And I think there's something in this. There is a challenge for us in this. Right? If you've got some people in your life right now, right, that you know, right, that you see, that maybe that you sense that they're needing some life spoken into them, I just want to encourage you, don't wait. Speak encouragement into them right now. Don't wait until they do something that you think might be worthy of encouragement. So here's what I just told you. I think there's a challenge for a lot of us. And if we chose to put this biblical perspective of encouragement into our life, I think there's a really great win here. I think we have the opportunity to pay attention to the path ahead. Right? Maybe there's some people in your life. Maybe it's a spouse. Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's a neighbor, a coworker. I bet there's some people who you can just sense they're in the middle of walking through some stuff. Or man, they're about to head into a busy season. And let me just say this. How many of you have a friend or you know someone who has a student that's going to be graduating high school in the next few weeks? Right? A lot of us do. That path ahead tells me that mom and dad are going to have some adjustments to have to figure out in their life. You know what biblical encouragement does? It says, hey, I see where you're going. And this is especially true for those of you who already have been down that path. To be able to go, let me just speak some life into you. It's going to be a weird adjustment, and you're going to have a pit in your stomach, and it's going to feel like you've got nothing left. But I'm just telling you, you're just beginning a new chapter. That is speaking biblical encouragement. You don't wait until they're 5 years in and go, hey, you really did a good job navigating that empty nest. Biblical encouragement speaks it ahead of time. It speaks the life into those things. And I think that God wants to use some of you in that kind of a way, especially those of you who've already been down that path before. And so here's my encouragement to you. Pay attention to the path ahead. Look at the life. Look at the people around you. Look for ways to speak life into where they're going. Now, let's be honest. Maybe for some of us, we're on the other side. We're the ones feeling discouraged. If you're anything like me, sometimes you can feel discouraged for so long it just feels normal. You ever been there? You're just used to sustained struggle. Seems like most of your life it's never been easy. You're just used to uncertainty. You're used to feeling like, man, I've got to figure this out on my own. And it just becomes a way of life for you. I've been there. Sometimes you navigate through discouragement for so long that you just assume this is always going to be the way it is. And here's the crazy thing. In an effort to try to stay somewhat healthy for those around us, we kind of numb our lives and say, this is just normal. It's okay. Because if I believe that it's not normal and I believe that this is toxic or unhealthy, man, it's going to send me down some places that I don't want to go. So if you're anything like me, maybe that's where you're at. You've been struggling, you've been discouraged or frustrated or annoyed for so long, it just starts to feel normal. And so here's what I want to do real quick. I want to give us some things that we can be on the lookout for that reveal a lack of courage, some symptoms that have a way of leading to disappointment for all of us. In fact, what I want to do is I want you to think of this like a check engine light. If you drive a car long enough, you're going to have a check engine light that comes on. Now, here's the thing about a check engine light. It doesn't mean that you have to take the next exit and get to a mechanic. It means that if you keep doing what you're doing, and if you don't put any attention towards fixing what might be broken, you will eventually blow up. That's what a check engine light is for. I believe that God gives some check engine lights for the soul to navigate the roads of life that we are on. And here's what I have found. There are some symptoms that have a tendency that if you don't deal with those things, if you don't recognize it, if you don't address it, it is going to lead you to a place of discouragement. You're going to make some decisions that you can't turn back from, and the shrapnel of your life isn't going to be contained to just you. So you know what? It would be a really good idea, guys, especially for us, to pay attention to the check engine lights on our heart. And so let me just give you a couple of them, because my guess is if you're anything like me, you can relate to some of these. Heck, you might be able to relate to all of them. This is my list. So these are all the things that I feel like. And here's the first one. I'll give you this if you're taking notes. One of the symptoms that always leads to discouragement is this: frustration. When you find yourself consistently frustrated, right? When people are frustrated, they have a tendency to begin to talk a lot more negative talk, right? It starts in our own mind, right? We're all just kind of smiling, going, okay, all right. But we got a whole nother tape playing in our head. And then that discouragement, that frustration starts to leak into other conversations. And have you ever noticed how easy it is to find someone else who's as annoyed as you? And here's what it does. It convinces us that we're on the right side because they feel it too. Let me just tell you, two unhealthy, frustrated people does not make a healthy person. But that's what it is. Frustration has a way of doing this. We start getting frustrated with other people. We start making judgments and accusations against groups of people or hearts or motives of other people because we're frustrated. We tend to be short-fused, short-tempered, easily annoyed. Now, as a person who I feel God has given the spiritual gift of frustration to, let me just tell you, one of the reasons that this feels righteous to some of us sometimes is this. Because it feels like the weight of the world or the circumstances on us, and we have this pressure to make things better for us and for others. So that's why all this frustration feels righteous. And if I don't do it, who's going to do it? I'm telling you, that is a symptom that will lead you to discouragement. Here's the next one, real quick, if you're taking notes. Fatigue. I have found a strong connection to my discouragement and my tiredness. Right? When you feel worn out and exhausted, right? Even when you're not even sure why, but you're just kind of going, man, I just feel drained. I feel wiped out I don't even know where it's coming from. And all you want to do is just kind of check out, binge watch 11 seasons of Netflix, sit with a bucket of chicken wings and a tub of ranch and just kind of leave all of your worries behind. Right? It's because there is this overwhelming sense of tiredness and this fatigue that starts to set in. And I'm telling you, fatigue is a symptom of discouragement. Right? If you stay in that place long enough, it is going to lead you to making some pretty significant life decisions. I think we see this happening more and more in our culture right now. We see it even within our churches. You may not be aware of this because it's not maybe your profession, but study after study has been released in the last couple of years, and it is showing one consistent thing for those who have given their life to vocational ministry, and it's this: that right now in this season, more than any other part of history, pastors are leaving ministry now faster than ever. Because discouragement comes in like a flood. And it usually comes in after the crisis seems to subside. You see, 2 years ago, we navigated a significant crisis in our culture. And there were a lot of people that I know, pastors that I love and I care about, who did all they could to buckle down, to be strong, to help their church get through. But guess what happens? When it seems like life's getting back to normal, discouragement comes in the flood. And they had done everything they could to get through the crisis, and now they're just depleted. And so right now, in the last 18 months, more people have left ministry than any other time in history. And here's the thing, that's just ministry. If you're a leader, you can relate to this. You start pushing through hard seasons of struggle because you've got to be the one who gets them through. You've got to be the one who's consistent and navigates those things. And then all of a sudden, discouragement starts to set in because you're now exhausted and you're burned out. You see, sustained struggle is stay frustrated long enough. Stay tired long enough. And it is going to lead you to a place of discouragement. How about this? Maybe you can relate to this one. Failure. Failure can often be a pretty significant symptom of discouragement. Right? Joshua had to feel some of this. I mean, he had tried to convince God's people to follow God, but none of them listened. And as a result, God waited for that entire generation to die before giving them another chance. And I'm sure this guy had to be spending a lot of time going, man, what could I have said differently? I could have prevented all that. Like, I was one of the 12. Like, maybe there was something I should have said. Maybe if I only did this, or I should have, if I could have, whatever it is. You ever been there before? You ever kind of have those conversations in your head? You feel like you've tried everything and it didn't work. And then all of a sudden discouragement starts to set in. And now you start thinking, I don't think I can be the kind of husband that I'm supposed to be. I don't think I can be the kind of spouse that I'm supposed to be. I don't think I can be the man, the woman, the father, the friend. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe you've tried so hard to beat that addiction. And you keep feeling like a failure because it always seems like one step forward and 5 steps back in life. I'm telling you, you stay there long enough, you keep feeling that way. Like you'll never be good enough. You're never going to be what your spouse needs. You're never going to be what your kids need. You stay in that place of feeling like a failure long enough, and it will lead you to discouragement. How about this last one? I'll give it to you. Fear. And here's what I mean. Maybe for a little while, you feel confident in the way that things are going to work out. But then all of a sudden, things start shifting around you. And now you're getting worried. Now you're getting a little anxious. Maybe you start feeling like that sense of fear is starting to grow. Maybe you get a phone call or a text message, and all of a sudden that peace, that confidence that you had just kind of fades away really quickly. It's the reason why when I pray with people, I tell them outside of salvation, the thing I pray for you to experience more than anything else is peace. So you ever notice how life feels different when you're at peace? But it's so elusive, isn't it? A phone call and it's gone. The tone of voice that your wife uses when she answers the phone, and it's gone. A child comes home, and it's gone. And all of a sudden what begins to happen is fear kind of starts to grow. And it begins to feel paralyzing. And I'm telling you that discouragement is beginning to set in. Right? And here's the thing. I'm sure we could just keep adding to this list of symptoms that lead to discouragement. Right? We can talk about criticism, how that leads to a bitterness about our past, injustice, stress. Right? That list just grows and grows and grows. And here's the thing I want you to see about this story. All of these emotions, all of these feelings had to have been present in Joshua's life. Right? This is the reason why that God encourages Joshua, be strong and courageous. Right? But here's the thing. Those words wouldn't mean a whole lot if they weren't rooted into something. Right? And so he points Joshua to where his strength and to where his courage from. Here's what I want you to do. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. This is important, especially if any of this has kind of resonated with you so far. I want you to remember this. Courage is only as good as what you've put your confidence in. Right? Courage is only as good as what you've put your confidence in. Right? So here's why God is telling Joshua to be strong and courageous. Because in verse 5, he says, I will be with you, Joshua. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. Verse 9, God says, the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Verse 13, God tells Joshua, God, I will give you this land. Right? And so here's why he is saying, be strong and courageous. It's because of why he should be strong and courageous, where he should put his confidence in. So here's the thing. If courage is only as good as what you put your confidence in, if that is true, then this also is true. Discouragement is an indication of misplaced confidence. Right? If courage is only as good as what you've put your confidence in, then what must also be true is discouragement is evidence. It is an indication that you have misplaced your confidence. Now, I don't know if this resonates with you, but I'll retrace my steps whenever I felt pretty overwhelmed, whenever I feel fearful sometimes, or worried, or anxious, or fatigued, or frustrated, anything on the list that leads me to a place of discouragement. If I retrace my steps, it will almost certainly bring me to a place where I misplaced my confidence in something. I think this is what our culture is dealing with right now. Maybe it's exactly what you're dealing with right now. We have placed our confidence in the wrong things. We hope for financial security. That would help us feel more confident. That would help us to feel less discouraged. But then that's starting to shift. I think over the last couple of years, a lot of us just hope that a return to normal would make things better. That's going to be what we needed. Or we hoped that having freedom and living life on our terms, and that's kind of what we deserve. If I could just do that, then I would feel so much better. I wouldn't feel so discouraged. I wouldn't feel so trapped. I wouldn't feel so overlooked. We hope that if I let everyone do what made them feel happy or feel loved or feel accepted, surely that must be the way to peace in my life and maybe in the world around us. But I'm telling you, we couldn't have been more wrong. And so what happens is whatever we put our confidence in, when that got tested and it didn't hold up, I think some of us felt pretty overwhelmed and discouraged. Maybe we feel that way right now. We hoped in an outcome, and we put our confidence in those things. And when those things didn't hold up, man, all of a sudden, discouragement just came in like a flood. Or we're starting to feel like we're on the pathway that's heading there. Right? So what God is telling Joshua is, hey, listen, Joshua, I want you to be strong and courageous. Not because Joshua was strong and courageous. He's saying, Joshua, you can have full confidence that I am strong and I am courageous. And I am going to go with you. That God is tested and true and can hold the full weight of your fear, can hold the full weight of your anxiety, the full weight of your fatigue, your frustrations, your failure, your disappointment. And you know why God put this in here? It's because the same promise that God gives to Joshua is a promise for you. God looks at all these things through Joshua. He's not saying, hey, I want the rest of history to remember this moment because that was a pretty cool thing that I just did. Like I was about to there was a Red Sea and I just parted it, and I want other people to hear about how cool I was, how powerful God was. You know what he's doing? He's saying, Joshua, I'm going to use you, my friend. You're full of discouragement. You're just like everybody else. You got some worries, some issues, some fears, but you know what? You don't have to be overwhelmed. I'm going to be with you. Put that in the Bible. That's good Bible. I want everyone who's going to come to realize that Joshua, the same God that's going to walk you through this trial, is going to walk every other person in human history through theirs. He goes, oh, print that. That's good Bible. Put that there because that's a promise, not just for you, Joshua, but it is for everyone who's ever going to read these words and trust that I am who I say that I am. So here's the thing I want to tell you. If you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe you're feeling fearful or worried or anxious, discouraged, let me just ask you this question that I think God would try to ask Joshua. Where have you placed your confidence? And just take an honest inventory of your emotions, your season, the times. Retrace some steps when you start getting annoyed that people aren't doing what you hope they would do. Churches aren't doing what you think they should do. Pastors aren't doing what you think they should do. Your kids, life isn't doing what you hoped it would do. When that frustration is building up, when that discouragement is starting to settle in, if you retrace some of those, it's going to take you back to this question. What have you placed your confidence in? I'm here to tell you that there is only one place that can withhold any testing that this life will bring, and it's Jesus. It's Jesus. It's not your own strength. It's not your willpower. It's not in a political system. It's not in an economic system. It's Jesus. He is the only one that can hold all of your fears, all of your worries, all of your discouragement, and with purity of heart say, hey, be strong and courageous. Not because you're strong and courageous, but because I am. And I will be with you. I will be with you. Wherever you go, whatever giants you face, whatever walls you come up against, I will be with you. And over the next few chapters, God begins to lead them into the promised land. If you were with us last week, Pastor Reg talked about the journey of God leading them through the Jordan River, where God literally stopped the waters of the Jordan so that the people could cross and move into the promised land. It was another miracle of God's power and how God often leads the way, that his presence goes before us, that it's just far enough ahead to keep us walking in faith and obedience. But God's presence goes before us. But here's what I want you to see. God told Joshua to do something in the middle of this miracle that I think sometimes if you've heard this story, we forget. He says, I want you to do something, Joshua, and I want it to be something that teaches people about where to put their confidence in so that they won't be discouraged when they get to the other side. Let me show it to you. In Joshua chapter 4, God is leading them through the Jordan River. And this is what God tells Joshua to do. I want you to choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones in the middle. Everybody say, in the middle of the Jordan. I want you to choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing. And I want you to carry them over with you and put them down at a place where you stay tonight. Here's what God tells Joshua. I want you to pick up these stones, and I want you to build an altar. God wanted them to build an altar to remind them in every single generation that would follow who God is, what God has done, and why we have such confidence in him. God was reminding them that I've been with you from the very beginning. And guess what? I'm with you in the middle, and I will be with you through to the other side. And friends, listen to me. You might feel like you're in the thick of it right now. You might even feel a little bit overwhelmed with your season of life, or maybe just looking at culture, whatever it may be that's stirring up some feelings of discouragement in you. Maybe it's frightened. Maybe you feel tired. Maybe you just feel worn out. Maybe you're even convinced that God stopped looking in your direction. Man, can I just tell you, don't miss what's in the middle because you're so worried about getting to the other side. God is with you right there, right in the middle. He's with you through it all. His promises are trustworthy and they're true. God is who he says that he is, and he is with you even in the middle. So maybe you know what some of us need to do today? Maybe some of us, we need to pick up some rocks. We need some visual reminders in our life of God's promises. that God has been good to us, that God is faithful to us, that God got me through that season. And even though I lost sight of it, even though I forgot about it, even though I kind of just wiped off the miracle as a coincidence, God is with me right now in the midst of what it is, so that one day our children are going to look and say, Mom and Dad, why is there a boulder in our living room? I'll tell you why. Because in some of the hardest seasons of our life, God was good. God was faithful to us. And son, daughter, I'm telling you, no matter what you go through in your life, God will be with you as well. Some of us need to build some altars right in the middle of our mess, because God is with us. God is right there in this place. And so here's what I want you to encourage you to do. I want you to look at your season of life right now. Maybe if it's fresh, look back where the seasons are still fresh. And think about, how can I create some visual reminders of God's faithfulness, God's power, so that I can be reminded of who I put my confidence in, that I too can be strong and courageous. Not because I feel strong, certainly not because I feel courageous, but because my God is with me. And he's stronger than whatever I'm going through. And he will help me be courageous enough to keep walking forward. I don't know what all of you are going through, but my guess is each one of us feel like we're in the thick of it at some points. Maybe you're holding on thinking, man, my marriage is about to fall apart. But God, you promised me. You promised that you would be with me. And I bet you're strong enough to fix this broken marriage. God, I'm discouraged. I raised my kids the right way, but man, they are choosing a path right now. And that path is going to be filled with heartbreak if they don't change course. I wish there was something I can do. But God, I need to be reminded that you are the same God yesterday, today, and forever. You care more about them than I do. And so, Lord, I hold on to your promises that I'm going to raise my kids according to your word and according to your ways, and they're not going to depart. It will always take root in their heart. I'm going to hold on to that promise. I don't know what it is that you're navigating through right now. I just want to encourage you, don't think for 1 second that God's not in the middle of your mess. That's what God tells his people. Hey, pick this up. They could have picked any stone up at any point once they got through to the other side. Why did God say, get 12 stones from the middle? I think it's got to be this promise, this reminder, that my goal isn't just to show up for you on the other side. I got something I'm doing in your life right now in the middle. Don't forget, I'm with you. I don't know what it is for you, but my prayer today is that as you leave this place, you will hold on to a promise that God has given to you. And so here's what we've done. As you exit, you'll see a couple of bins. There's a couple of bins full of rocks, look just like this. I just want to encourage you, if you feel led, take one of these. Take them home. Put it on your desk at work. Put it on your fridge. Make a headband out of it if you want. Make a necklace. I don't care what you do with it. Take it. These came directly from the Jordan River. No, that's not true. I got them at Home Depot. But I bought them from a guy named Jordan. So, miracle? I don't know. As you leave today, take these. And let it be a reminder that God is with you, even in the middle of your mess. Would you pray with me? God, I thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you're doing in us and through us. God, I thank you that you can speak through an idiot like me. But God, I thank you more than anything that you allow me to experience this in real time. To be able to share honestly the discouragements, the frustrations, the questions, the doubts that I have. And God, you're not freaked out by any of them. Instead, you encourage me to come to the throne of grace where I find what I need. So Lord, I come and I bring all of my doubt, all of my fears, all of my anxiousness. all of my worries about provision or future or providence or influence, I lay it all at your feet, God. And I thank you that you are with me. So no matter what I face today or tomorrow or 10 years from now, you are with me every single step of the way. You are the God of miracles. And Lord, I pray that you would help me to hold on to the promises of God that are yes and amen. They are so be it. Lord, may that bolster our faith. May we, as the people of God, leave this place today being strong and courageous, not because of who we are, but because you are with us. And you are everything. You are the perfection of everything that I am not. And so, Lord, I thank you for your goodness and your faithfulness and your graciousness and your power. I pray that it would be on display in my life and in the life of this church. And God, may we never forget that you are with us even in the middle. And may we proclaim to generations to come of your goodness, your faithfulness to us. That we serve a God of miracles and he can bring miracles in your life as well. In Jesus' name, amen. Would you stand with us tonight? As today, when we sing this earlier, we're going to declare this one more time. This is our prayer today. God, you are the God of miracles. Amen. Amen. Let's sing this together as we go today.